Today I'm going to be taking a look at replacing the inducer fan on a Lennox furnace. This furnace was installed in 2007, and this particular device or fan is used to exhaust the bad air to the outside. So it is not the main motor that pushes air through the house, it's the motor that pushes the exhaust air to the outside. So this is the noise that I'm hearing in the fan. It should be nice and quiet, and as you can hear, there's some additional noise going on, and this is what I'm going to try and fix in this inducer motor. This is showing the original inducer fan. As I look at it, I'm looking to see if there's anything that looks out of the ordinary. And at this point, everything looks okay, but I have noticed there's a bit of a noise coming to it when it runs. When I spin the motor, I can hear a subtle noise coming from it. And so when that thing spins at full speed, it becomes very, very loud. Listen. So the other thing I'm looking for is where all the connections are, in terms of how to replace this with the new one. So there's some kind of hose here. There's some sensors connected. We have some cables that we're going to want to keep track of which one is which. One appears to, oh, they both have a black stripe. We've got the ground. And then we've got the plug. And of course the main discharge. Out the old motor or fan, I'm just taking note of a few things. You can see here I've added a little bit of tape just to keep track of which one goes on the inside of these plugs and which one goes on the outside, and also just taking note of where these sensors are located based on the screw settings. So you can see they're all the way to the one side, which means it's pushing the sensors as far away from the fan on both sides as possible. Also note this washer here is used to connect the ground to the main furnace. So this is the new part that came in the mail today. This is a Lennox part number 12W47. I'm just inspecting it to make sure that it looks the same as the one that I will be replacing. Everything looks pretty good on here. You can see if I look closely, there's the part number information, which matches exactly what's on the furnace today. And the other thing is that if I spin this just gently by hand, it's nice and quiet, whereas the other one had a bit of a noise to it when I spun it manually. Alright, so we're going to loosen up the bolts now that are keeping this thing on here, one by one, and we're going to keep track of the screws so that we don't forget which ones go with which. Okay, so these smaller ones kind of keeping these valves together. The sensors. And this clip here should just come off nicely by pinching and pulling. Make sure there's only one way that can go on, and it is, because there's flat and then circles. And moving along to the other sensor here. And I should have mentioned, the first thing I did is I disconnected the power to the furnace to make sure that there's no chance that anything's going to engage while we're actively trying to switch out this fan. Okay, so there's that. And let's see if we can easily disconnect this guy. Just using pliers. We don't want to wreck the rubber hose at all. So we should be able to easily just disconnect these by just pulling gently. Pull on the plastic, make sure we don't pull the wire out. There we go. And now we just really have the main bolts to disconnect. This looks like it's going to be 5/16. And let's see. So there's a couple short ones, and then the longer ones. This one back here is going to be a little bit more of a pain to get at. So all these things are in the way. You'll notice some of these have washers and some don't. The washers are on the long screws. This top one is the one that keeps track, or has the ground as well. So I'll have to keep track of that one. Okay, now that I've disconnected all the screws, I'm gonna take it out gently. Gonna have to pull up a bit on the exhaust so we can disconnect it. And there we go. Should be able to pull it out now. And there's the old motor. And you can hear that strange noise that it was making. Okay, so we've gotten the old one out, and you can see here there's that nice rubber gasket still there. That gasket needs to be there to make sure that we have a nice clean contact with the opening, which is where it's going to suck out all the bad fumes and exhaust them to the outside. Okay, now I'm going to attach the new one in here. First I'll have to make sure I can get it in here and hooked up into the hose. Now the exhaust is okay. Now we're gonna start by attaching one of the big ones, or one of the small ones rather, because it's easier to get it lined up. I'm not going to tighten this all the way here. I'm just going to kind of get it snug a little bit, so then I can attach some more to keep it in the right spot. And remember, this top one is where the ground was, so we're going to want to make sure we handle the ground again. Okay. And this should thread real nice. It shouldn't take a lot of effort to thread this in. Okay, now we're gonna hook these back up. Remember, they were set up in a way that they were all the way out as far as possible. So we will do the same. And we don't want to reef these down. We want to, again, make them tight, but not too tight. Plastic tends to break if you crank things down. Alright, so this is the second sensor here that I'm connecting the same, or screwing in the same way it was before. And that's good on there. Now we're just going to put our plugs back in. Remember, we taped the one that's closer to the inside so we'd remember which one was which. And then we're going to attach our hose. With the hose clamp, like such. Right, so we've hooked everything up now. We're just going to tighten things, make sure everything's good, make sure this nice hose clamp is on. Make sure that's nice and snug, because that is going to be the exhaust. Alright, and we're going to do one last check on all of our connection points to the furnace. Make sure everything is nice and snug, but again, we can't go too tight because it is just going into sheet metal on the other side. Okay, now that I've done all my checks, I've made sure that everything that I undid is tightened back up. All my plugs are on. I'm going to plug the final one, this plastic connection here. And it connected just fine. Let's run that, get it out of the way, make sure it's not going to interfere with the furnace or the fan. And now we're ready to try it out. Nice and quiet. No more sound. This is excellent. So I think this was a successful job. All that, and it didn't take very long. Very good. We are going to make sure that it vents properly, and we will do that by monitoring the temperature of that exhaust pipe. It should get a little bit warmer as the furnace kicks on. Okay, so there we have it. It's been running for a few minutes. It's still nice and quiet. I can feel this temperature of the exhaust pipe is warming up, which is what we want. I also went outside and made sure that where the exhaust comes out of the house, that it's blowing lots of air. So this is a job well done and a successful mission on replacing this inducer motor. I hope this helps. Have a great day.